Okay.
So thank you for being here. We're going to do a little bit of the regularly scheduled Ed Development meeting, which would cover last month's and this month's, but that regularly scheduled plan has been interrupted by a whole bunch of new circumstances that we hope to fill you in on. So this is kind of the overview of the meeting. First of all, let's start with board members. Please ask questions along the way. If there's anyone from the public here, looks like Monica. Hi, Monica. If you could hold to the end so we can get through the presentation, that would be great. All right. The big overview of the meeting, we're going to talk about where we are as far as student programs now, summer programs that were pending and what they'll look like, and then begin the discussion about the fall. So starting off with the spring 2020 debriefing, Michelle's going to go through quickly what it is that that has happened since March 13th.
Sure. So as we break this into three sections, we're going to look at student programs, staff development, as well as look at extended and summer learning opportunities prior to moving into the summer. So we're going to begin looking at online instruction with phase 3. We recently provided a in-depth presentation at the board meeting on our online instruction at phase 3. We are currently in week 6 with 3 weeks remaining. We do have calendar updates that were sent out both to our staff as well as our community. Memorial Day, there will be no Canvas course instruction. We also have end of the year student calendar updates. K through 8, we're going to be having a virtual field day, which will be June 4th and 5th. So there'll be no Canvas course instruction. Instead, the field day course will be released to all students. We will have final lessons, closeout and catch-up time the week of June 9th. Report cards and progress reports will be due by staff on June 12th. And then all end of the year celebrations, especially for our 4th and 8th grade students, will be June 11th and 12th. We previously spoke about the possibility of phase 3.5 as well as 4. 3.5 was the continuation of 3 and possibly looking at the reduction of student work. Based on the feedback from students, staff, as well as our parents, we did not feel the need to reduce anything at the large environment at the elementary or secondary level. We did take the elementary special lessons from art, music, PE, library, and social emotional learning, and we reduced them from a 30-minute lesson down to a 15-minute lesson per week. And that just reduced the amount of time the students were engaged in those lessons. That was the only overall reduction we made. As we looked at phase 4, moving instruction to programmed instruction from a third party, we only have 6 students currently enrolled in that, and they're all secondary students at this point. Every other student within our district is participating within the Canvas courses. As we look at staff development, this is included here because with the calendar update and revision, we have the staff development days in the June. Once students end on the 12th, beginning June 15th, we have a variety of staff development days. Although the sketch of that is only in the beginning phase, the variety of things that will be covered during that time will include Canvas course development for 2021. We're going to have a variety of department and team meetings that typically would happen at the end of the year and or over the summer. We will also have curriculum writing opportunities, development of assessments and or revisions to curriculum as needed. And then overall professional development with the new math program for elementary. We have that professional development scheduled, as well as DIBELS 8, which is a reading assessment that we're transitioning to. As we look at extended and summer learning opportunities, the extended opportunities we are looking at, instead of ending on June 12th and just have students leave for the summer, we're looking to continue to access to Canvas courses for self-paced lessons. We started our online operation with phase 3 stating that it was self-paced. So we don't want them to shut off on June 12th, simply because some students may not be done. So we're gonna leave the access to Canvas courses throughout the summer. So students can go back, they can review and or complete things that were incomplete. In addition, we're looking at the option of self-paced courseware. It would be a third-party option, and if parents or students are interested in participating from June 15th to June 30th, we can enroll them in this third-party programmed platform or courseware if they are interested. We will be sending out a survey to parents for any students that may be interested at that point. We can also extend that possibly later past June 30th. In addition, if any families are looking for summer learning opportunities, based on the interest from the survey, we may be able to provide students with similar courseware or other options throughout the summer. Once we have more information from the parent survey, we'll be able to determine what steps are needed next. Next, we're going to look at summer programs.
And the first summer program is our traditional summer school. And that has run for a number of years. And last year, if you recall, we had a hybrid program where students only came on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays and worked on software in the building. And at the same time, worked on that same software at home in kind of a hybrid model. Well, lo and behold, here we are doing something very much like that now. So the traditional summer school, as Neshaminy knew it, though it was being phased out, I think it's been phased out a little bit earlier. So what we will do is find those students who absolutely need courses, like those seniors who may not have passed a course. They'll need 1 or 2 for graduation. Those kids in a sequence of courses that might need a particular course to go to the next sequence, and we will make sure that they're provided in an online nature, those courses. And coupling this with what Michelle talked about earlier, those extended courseware opportunities, it kind of takes the place of the traditional summer school. So the goal is to make it what it was, just a step better and a step more flexible. And the need for it, as far as individual students, quantity, etc., has yet to be determined, as has the cost, because all of a sudden all these online course providers have got a lot of attention. Some of them want your business, some of them are so full that they can't handle one's business. So we have a little work to do there once we get a good number.
In addition, we're going to continue our English language intensive learning lab. This is a program that runs in the summer. It is for all of our English language learners. Any student from our incoming first graders through our seniors are eligible for this program. It is completely funded through our Title III federal dollars. This year, we will be providing in a virtual environment. We will continue with the same level in the 2-hour sessions, as well as July 6th through August 6th. Students will participate. We will also use programs that we use throughout the year, but also engage them in a variety of STEM activities, which they are fond of doing each summer. In addition, our Pupil Service Department will continue with extended school year through a virtual manner. We're not going to be bringing students into our schools at this time, but we are going to be providing the services outlined within their IEPs. So Pupil Services are working on this program right now. They're identifying through IEPs as well as NOREPs and making decisions based on who is eligible for this program, and then they're staffing it accordingly.
Unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, summer stock as we know it had to be canceled. So the main stage was going to be Phantom of the Opera. So we have taken all that, what's been purchased, what's been reserved and everything, and we have, I'll say canceled it for this year, but probably better to say postponed it until next year. So summer stock will take a break and return next year just as strong, and they're already 3 months, 2 months, 1 month into planning what they're going to do next year. So that has been canceled. Refunds are being issued, and we will pick it up next year, unfortunately.
Then the last program that was canceled, we brought back Summer Pass last year, and this year we're not moving forward. It's not an option for virtual environment, so that's something we'll look at returning to next year if we have that ability.
The PASS program, that was funded through grants or something, true?
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was through Pupil Services, and it brought a variety of students that needed that extra support over the summer. It's just not a virtual environment. They did a lot of trips.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm assuming there's just so they're gonna have to just go without this time around. I assume. I guess.
Correct. And we were fortunate to have
that.
it back last year, and I know their goal is to continue it next year as long as we're in a face-to-face environment where students can interact.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. As we continue to look at staffing programs, this time of year we present through Ed Development what our summer looks like. So we want to do that briefly because more of our attention will be spent on what does our fall look like under curriculum instruction. So as we look at our new teacher seminars through the training, we will have 3 days for new teachers as they return in August. We will begin planning for those both in a face-to-face environment as well as virtual. So that way those new teachers that are hired are trained and ready for the new school year in whatever fashion that brings. In addition, we do have already our responsive classroom training booked. We booked that last year as a continuation. We trained 20 teachers last year with a goal of training 20 to 30 teachers this summer. Right now, it is in a face-to-face environment in August. We need to wait and see what the next several weeks look like prior to making the commitment to moving that virtual or postponing it to the following year. We will also be planning for our administrative retreat. The focus of the retreat this year, although we will need the time as administrators to work on the upcoming school year, we're really going to have to look at the educational system changes as a result of COVID-19. And then all teachers within the calendar for 2021 will be returning August 31st and September 1st. We will continue with school faculty meetings, department meetings, new staff support, system restarts, etc. We will look at convocation abilities once we know what the meeting opportunities will bring, if we're allowed to have large groups or not. And lastly, we do a lot of work in C&I, as you're aware, over the summer. I've listed a variety of things that will be focused on this summer. The main thing that will take place will be the educational delivery models for 2021. Throughout the summer, we'll continue to work on a lot of the goals that have been outlined over the last 2 years that continue, and they're listed here. I'm not going to go through them in depth simply because our focus needs to be the educational delivery model. But I don't want you to think that all of the other things that we focus on year to year and or our planning for the upcoming year are not going to be in existence.
Michelle, are we assuming that we're going to be back in the classroom in some capacity in September?
Tina, it's a great question. It actually takes us to our fall options. So we have 3, if not more, options here to talk to you about, which include in-school teaching, which is our brick and mortar environment, which is our goal. We also need to look at the online environment, which we're currently in, and then the blended model and what would that look like. Just because we don't have those answers now, but we're constantly looking at getting answers as to when can we make those decisions, and then what will those decisions lead us to. So great question, because it's going to lead us into that next section, Tina.
I had a question as well, and perhaps you're about to answer it.
Sure.
You know, when we put things on hold in March and April, and we started phasing things back in, we didn't go back to our original curriculum, did we?
We did.
We did. Okay. So that was never. So teachers continued so I would assume that, given either a fully virtual or blended model, the curriculum, you just pick right up, math would continue to pick right up and keep going, or no?
Well, you're going to have to definitely assess students and identify where they are. So nothing, honestly, in a virtual environment could ever replace the brick and mortar environment and what we do in the classroom. So we've gone from a 7-hour day and we've taken it down to a 2.5-hour instructional period day. So we have focused on the critical components and standards that needed to be covered, but all of the other pieces that are truly critical as well have been kind of put on the back burner, not because they're not critical or essential, just because we needed to look at the standards that had to be covered. So we will have a lot of work to do in September in any district, whether that be ours or anywhere else, because it's a very different environment when you're working virtually.
So to answer your question, Adam, we delivered parts of our curriculum over the last, since March 13th. Our teachers have identified important things and taught those important things. In June, they're going to meet as groups and identify what they've missed. Not only that, they're going to identify what didn't get taught well in the virtual environment. And then we're going to replan, till September to make sure that we recover, review, or reteach some of those pieces. In some cases, that recovery will not be difficult. In some cases, that recovery might back things up for a year, a half year, etc. So we're going to put in June, once the kids are gone, we're going to put our staff on that task. They're already aware of it because they're handing their kids off to their colleagues. So that's a good question, and we don't have the exact answer. It differs by grade level. It differs by content. But there is the understanding that next September will be slightly different as we bring kids back and hold them harmless for the situation that the world put them in.
Sure.
Correct.
I apologize. I have another question. And that is in regard to, I know there's talk right now of certain colleges having doing less of I guess they have a fall break, and actually beginning their winter break early. Was there any talk about doing something similar in the anticipation that once November, December hits, that's when we anticipate perhaps a resurgence of the virus?
There's been we have not talked specifically about changing the calendar. I would be bringing people back earlier and let them out earlier. And yeah, we saw some of the colleges doing it. They are predicting as to what they believe will be happening. So it definitely is an option. It will need to be an option that's played out before we know the answer to what's going to happen. And it would require an act of the board itself to actually change that calendar. So if that's stuff that people would like to explore, I think that is a possibility. Coming up next are a bunch of options that go from A to G, and Adam just offered number. What comes after G? H or I, somewhere in there. So this list is going to keep on going, and then at some point we're going to have to pick. So Michelle, can you back up a slide for a second? So the 3 fall options are in-school teaching like it always was, like nothing happened. Online instruction that we'll talk about in a second, a little bit about kind of like what we're doing now, maybe better. And then this whole right side over here, this blended model that includes options C through you pick the letter. So let's go to the next slide. What we are doing now, you have, or hopefully you will fully budget us for next year and fund us to do full school. We will do what we do every summer, which is a huge task, and get the buildings, the schedule, the teachers, and all that stuff ready for a normal school year opening as normal. That is underway in the event that it's possible, and in September, and in the event that it's possible anytime thereafter. All right, so that's option A. Option B is exactly where we are now with some enhancements. We're not going back, and we're going to be in this virtual environment. We are funded for that. We are planning for that. And in our planning, it's an open duration. So is it 2 weeks? Is it a month? Is it till Thanksgiving? Is it the entire year? We hope not. But our planning is going to take in that flavor, in that we believe at some point we should be able to go back to normal, because normal's still there and it's viable within the building. Believe it or not, to do the online environment like we're doing now, we have to actually schedule the physical environment, because the online environment pulls from that master schedule of the physical environment to populate itself. So oddly, it doesn't make it any easier, other than sweeping rooms and buffing floors. The actual work is there as far as getting kids in the right groups, the right classes, all that taken care of, teachers' schedules out, because that's what populates the online environment.
Question.
Yes.
You know, on this, if we do have to start with online instruction, have you gotten any feedback from teachers about the difference between starting a school year with kids you've never seen or met, as opposed to finishing a school year with kids that you already know? I mean, that would be a frightening aspect to start the school year this way.
It is. Yes, it is.
Well, especially for incoming freshmen, right?
For anybody, you're not going to know it. For very many of the
incoming
kids.
any
Yep. It is an entirely new environment. That is a great question. And you're right. It was easier having known everyone, having everything in place, knowing your classmates, and then going out as compared to the other. Same thing with the kindergarten class, the new 5th grade class. We have some ideas about that, about keeping the kids together as much as we can, so at least they're familiar with that. We have to play that out and see how that works along the way. But you're absolutely right. That is an entirely new challenge. And one of the successes of our present online plan is that the students and the teachers have a multi-month working relationship, which you cannot substitute. And you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So that is the challenge. It is our hope that this new, if we have to do it, will add some more synchronous opportunities, more things like this than we're doing now, or they meet in person, at least at a synchronous time through a video. Possibility of actually doing some more teacher Neshaminy grown videos and teacher demonstrations. We also have some more challenges if we go for the longer run, possibly formalized grading, more rigorous participation standards, and more rigorous assessment for understanding standards. We kind of put that aside as a secondary because of the nature of the situation, the condition of the community, the world, and the idea that that is one difficult thing to do, K through 12. But if it were a sustainable thing next year, we'd have to address all that. So plan A and B, believe it or not, are actually something that we can see that we can pull off. Not easy. Oh, A's easy as it is opening any school year. B is easier because we've already done it. And we're hoping that our staff in some of their June days will actually have a significant part of September and maybe October already set up for us. I think October may have been ambitious on my part, but at least a good start. The issue arises if it's not A or B. So these whole set of unanswered questions, and I don't want to talk about the answers to the questions. I just want to talk about the questions. Will school open with a mask requirement? Will school open with social distancing requirements? Will school open with temperature check requirements? Will school open with a maximum group gathering limit in common areas like cafeterias? Will school remain open with a positive COVID-19 case in the population? And all the way down in the bottom is pretend we can transport kids to school and then give them equal access, a fair and appropriate public education, and pretend our staff comes to work because they have no pre-existing conditions or age issues. All right. So suppose some of these questions are answered, yes, we will open with social distancing or masks. That leads to a whole bunch of other questions. How will we? And you just keep filling them in. We could go on for hours. All right. So I want you to pretend we've answered all those questions and we figured it out. All right. So come with me to my happy place. I need you to come with me. Back up for a second, Michelle. Back up for a second. We have figured all this stuff out. All right. Come with me for a second. Let's talk about educational plans if we can figure that out. So plan C. I think some of the goals of our plan should be, it should have parent option and flexibility. Not everyone's going to be comfortable sending their kid back to school with mask rules or social distancing rules. Well, what do? Do you penalize them for not doing that? So I think it has to be flexible. And I think the plan has to be able to transition back into what we all thought was normal. We can't create some crazy plan and then have to turn that crazy plan into something 2 weeks later that gets us back in, if we're able ever to go back to the normal. And I think that whatever we do has to have the Neshaminy homegrown community flavor with our curriculum, with our teachers, etc. So all that being said, here were the options I had before Adam threw option H in at me today.
Sorry.
That's all right. Plan C. Plan C, some type of parent choice. We're having school. These are the rules. And you come to school if you want. If you don't, here's your option for online. All right. It's an idea. I'm not crazy about it. No one's crazy about it because we don't know how social distancing would work based on the percentage of kids that choose it. Plan D is the idea of an A-B schedule. So suppose we had the social distance. So half the kids alphabetically A to K, for lack of a better word, come on Monday. They learn on Monday with the full teaching staff in, just half the kids. They go through their normal day. And on Tuesday, well, on Monday, when they learn in class, their teacher says, by the way, this is what you're doing tomorrow online. And they map it all out. Then those kids go home on Tuesday and they have work to do for that class that's set up for them in Canvas like they do now. They progress through it. They come back on Wednesday. They get a live teacher. They do the same thing. They go home on Thursday, etc. And then there's an opposite group doing the opposite. All right. That one's kind of leading the way now because it seems to be feasible. Don't ask, again, the how do we questions, don't even get there. What it does is allows us to come back to school if something says, all right, we're ready to go. We're ready to go because the structure's already there. You just change the kids' A/B schedule. Plan E is the same thing weekly. It's out there. One group of kids comes 1 week, learns, then they're off the next week learning online. Option that presents us the idea that we can still go back to normal. Plan F, some type of AM/PM schedule. Not getting a lot of stars simply because one, you have to change your staff hours. Two, everyone's going to want to pick their AM/PM time. It may not balance. And probably the most difficult is transitioning back to what is normal is not in that AM/PM schedule. You got to reschedule again and push everything back to normal.
I'm not a fan of Plan F at all.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Can anyone repeat that?
Mrs. Hollenbach said she's not a fan of Plan F at all.
Okay, we will cross off Plan F, and if I'm not either, Tina. I don't think anybody is. Plan G is called the Israeli model. At least that's what it's been called, where they send some kids to school, kindergarten 1, 2, 3, and 11 and 12, and then the rest of them are at home learning online. I don't know if they've actually rolled that out. I don't know if I have the country rate, but that's a plan out there as well. That has promise, but you have to reschedule your whole staff to teach the grades that are coming to school to provide for the social distancing. Then you have to schedule and teach the kids at home with that same staff. And then if you ever get to come back to school full, you got to reschedule the whole thing. All right. So
I have a question, Doc. So so considering that we're also implementing the new 6th period type teaching, which of these options does that throw the wrench into?
That is the difference in that schedule for the teacher is that they get an extra section of kids, which you pick the number 25 to 35 on their caseload, and instead, excuse me, instead of having a duty, which would be a study hall or a cover for your colleague when they're absent and we can't get a sub, instead of having that time slot that they either did a study hall or covered for their colleague or had extra time to prep, which was the bonus of that, yeah. They now have a class. Right. So I think they all impacted just about the same. That should be neutral to students, other than they're probably going to get a little less TLC along the way because teachers don't have as much time. But as far as any of these schedules impacting that different, I assume the goal would be to deliver any of these schedules at the same cost we're budgeted for now. So I would say it would not impact cost. Would it impact the teachers? I mean, they're all going to impact teachers. We're going to have to get an incredible amount of support, buy-in, and I'm probably going to owe everybody dinner when it's all over, all 1,100 people, to be able to be flexible enough to pull all of this off. So again, and we'll keep adding. At some point, though, we have to take a guess and make a move in one direction, and it's probably going to be before someone above us says whether we need masks, whether we need social distancing, whether we can eat in the cafeteria or not, what happens when we get a positive case. So we probably have to pick one without knowing all those answers. And it's probably the most flexible one, the most likely to be able to get us to full-time online if we had to, or back to full-time school if we had to. So I don't think anyone's looking forward to making this choice. And we've been kicking the can down the road till we get the kids out of the building and we can start to chew on it and see what works. And maybe the world's a different place in August and September. Maybe. We don't know. So from there, it leads us to just a series of questions. So that's all the stuff that Michelle listed is what we thought we were going to do. That's still there. We're going to try to do it, but we're not going to do any of that till we're ready for our 9,000 to 10,000 students, our 1,100 staff members for August and September to make sure, one, we can deliver an educational program, two, they feel safe, three, if they don't feel safe, they have options that they don't feel like they're compelled to do something one way or the other.
Right.
So that's where we are now. And I hesitate to do this, but I'll open the floor for questions. By all means, just unmute yourself and ask.
I got mine all
I'd
out
like
of
to
the
ask
way.
a question here. If a student just can't seem to deal with the online situation, what remedies do we have to help that student out?
At the secondary level, I'll tell you what we've done. One, we've allowed the parent with the principal and the teachers to pare down the requirements if it's too much. So instead of doing a half hour a day and 6 subjects, they come to some type of agreement, which the parent drives. You know, I'm only going to do my core courses. I'm not going to do my electives, or I'm going to do only math and social studies on Monday and Wednesday, and what's left, English and science on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's an option, and some people have exercised that. The other option is that we put them on a pre-programmed vendor courseware that's self-paced. Where they can go through it at their own pace, at their own time, and don't have to deal with the Canvas environment. That's what we did this time. Irene brings up a good question that I forgot to mention. In all of those plans have to be the option, I think maybe I did mention it, for the parent who wants to stay with Neshaminy but doesn't want to send their kid to school. So we have to come up with something on top of all these that says if Michelle doesn't want to send her children to Neshaminy for September and whatever, because she's not comfortable, she's got, maybe one of them has a situation, maybe somebody in her family has a situation, maybe she's just not comfortable. We shouldn't throw her out to go do homeschooling or go pick a charter cyber school. We should provide her with an option, and we're working on that as well, but that hasn't materialized yet, but we will figure it out. So Irene, the idea is options and flexibility. If you think about it, though, it's going to be next to impossible. We can probably individualize what kids need to some extent and give them what we need. The hard part is maintaining a system of continuity and the quality of our instructional program. So, we plan to take care of everyone who comes to us and says, I can't or I'd like to. That is the ultimate plan.
Same at the elementary. The flexibility is also there. We're working with students and families, whether it be a rotation of what they're doing, they're delaying work, they're working at their own pace. We also have instructional assistants contacting students through Zoom and helping them in accommodating lessons and or reading lessons, depending on what the need is. And that does not have to require an IEP for that. It's really working through the families to determine what the need is. So we're trying to work with every family based on what they're telling us their need is.
Okay. Yeah, on those same lines, would one of the options be our virtual school for those parents? I mean, we're kind of set up for that. I'm assuming there's a lot of room there.
There is, there is, Dave. So that type of idea is the option, or is the type of option. The cost of that particular option is not something that happens at thousands of kids. So we might have to look for a option that provides similar services, not at that cost. That is an exceptional program. I guess we could, but the problem being the ability to transport back, because then we're paying for two very expensive programs. Excuse me. The goal would be to keep our present staff doing what they do and then provide this other option. If the other option costs as much as having them in school or close to it, then we have a budgetary problem of running both plans. So yes, but
Not your first choice.
correct. But that idea is there, just not at that cost.
And we won't know how
Rob.
many families are interested until we know what the fall looks like. So if it's 5 kids, it's different. But if it's 1,000 students, it's going to be very different.
Rob and Michelle, this is Tara. Is there an option in Canvas to have a module go at a self-pace? So, you know, if I have all of my lessons set up for, you know, English 12, and in these situations, like you said, where someone is looking for, you know, all online or an option that wouldn't be as expensive as that cyber option, is there a way to go through our modules using Canvas at a self-pace?
Yes.
Because we're currently doing that. So all elementary is self-paced now.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, so it still requires feedback and interaction with the staff member because, you know what I mean, they can't just go through not knowing how they're doing.
Right.
Okay.
But yes, it's a great option. And it might even be an option. What's different with the professionally designed programs, not that our staff isn't professionals, but they're not professional online designers yet. Give us a couple months. The online CAN programs, the vendors, they cycle through ideas, they circle back, they assess and branch to where the individual, so we have to get far more sophisticated if we're going to actually design that. And we have the talent to do it. Just a matter of putting our mind to it and getting it done. So Canvas is exactly what it is, a blank canvas. So there's a lot of potential there. Tara's right.
Okay, thank you.
And based on my cough, I have one of those conditions that says I can't come to work. So this is not looking good.
Are there any other questions?
All right.
That takes us to our final slide, actually, which we always look at what are future ed development topics. So we really need to look. There's an echo. So we need to look at what topics are we going to be bringing to the Ed Development Committee in the fall. We did just have a budget meeting and a number of things were brought up at that meeting. So we don't know if there are topics that we need to begin to research so that we're prepared with information for the fall. Are there any topics we would like to bring up here?
I don't really have any. It's so hard to think about that because of the state of flux that we're in, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that, Tina, it's a significant point and we don't know what our options are going to look like. My bigger concern is just making sure that if we are, because there were budget cut suggestions, and if we're going to be looking at those for options next year at budget time, we just need to make sure we have the time to research anything that the board would like researched so we can bring that to the table. We do not need to have those decisions here. We just are giving you another option so that way we have that period of time.
One of the things that's on that at least I was thinking about is technology, and that's the underlying technology. Again, anything that enhances our ability to seamlessly switch between in-person instruction and virtual instruction in case we have, you know, resurgence or, you know, COVID-20, COVID-21, you know, who knows? But our abilities to be able to respond to that, I believe that is something that the underlying educational technology that supports all of this is I think is going to be something that we will have to address, because to me that would be a worthwhile expenditure of funds to ensure we're resilient and we can switch on a dime.
Okay.
I like that. And that just thinking out loud. I'm sorry, Irene, go ahead.
What about the special education program?
The special education program, presently, we have our special education staff doing exactly what everybody else is doing. They're still meeting if students are being co-taught, those teachers are working together in Canvas. If they have a replacement class in a smaller environment, that special education teacher has that smaller environment class. IEP meetings are still taking place. Progress monitoring is still happening. There is, you can't lie, there is the lack of that personal connection because you're not next to each other. We can't replace that. And our biggest issue, to be honest, is there are groups of kids that need, they call them the low incident population, that need attention throughout the day. And that is very difficult when they don't have the proximity of human contact. We fixed that, not fixed it, but by giving them more support through their computer as far as live synchronous instruction, by having teachers and instructional aides with them more often. So that is the plan at the moment. That's probably the area that needs the most improvement if we were to do it again in September. But now we know better. We know what our resources are. And I'm going to spin it back to Adam's point. What do we need more to make us a more agile organization to be able to pivot on a dime? We don't give our instructional assistants and our support staff technology. They're at home trying to help us on their home computer. If I had to do Zoom, if I had to do this Zoom meeting on my home computer, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'm pretty sure that thing's old. But so I'm on a district laptop. So the question is to be able to be as agile as we want. There's a whole bunch of people that can support us, but we don't give them the tool because otherwise they probably would not have used it. But now all of a sudden we're in an environment where there are 600 support staff members that are all able to interact with kids in some way. And if they had the ability to do it, wouldn't that be a neat thing? So to answer Irene's question, we need to get better at it. And to parlay into Adam's idea, yes, there are things that would make us better in this situation.
Well, I believe that's the major crux of this. I think we're kidding ourselves if we want to get back to normal. I don't know that anyone wants to get back to the way things were. I think it's an opportunity for us as a district to improve. So that agility that you talk about is something that I think would be a worthwhile thing for us to look into, because we don't want any of our kids losing out or going without for any long period of time. And I also believe that some form of virtual instruction could be used in the future, whether or not we get back to into the classroom or not. No doubt about it. The face-to-face is great, but I think given the technology that exists and that we already have, I think it's going to make sense for us to have that back and forth and the ability to kind of serve along those parallel lines of instruction.
Yep.
Correct.
You're absolutely right. Something, and a lot of stuff will probably stick. So you take the virus out at whatever date you believe it's going to be gone, and we're going to have a better educational system with what we keep from what we've learned.
Correct.
Any other questions, thoughts, comments? I want to ask Ms. Boyle to what extent the board wants to be involved, up to date on what we're actually deciding to do for September, because that's going to happen with no scheduled planned meetings. So you don't have to answer now, but if you could get back to Michelle and I, would you like weekly emails? Would you like ed development over the summer? Would you like something? Because somewhere around the middle of June, we're going to have to start mapping out one or two of these plans. And then somewhere in July, August, we're going to have to pull the trigger and let people know this is what's coming if X, Y, and Z exists. So to the extent the board, I assume the board wants to be involved in it, or at least give the head nod that it's okay. We need a plan to communicate because we don't usually talk to each other over the summer.
Might be a good idea. I will get back to you.
All right.
Thank you. Great. Thank you for joining us tonight. If there are no further questions, it looks like we're going to end the meeting.
All right.
Okay, very good.
Thank you very much.
STEM
Thank
Challenge 2 coming Friday.
Thank you.
STEM Challenge 2 coming Friday.
Oh, all
I
right.
like it.